Welcome to another Midas Letter RAW. I'm here with my great friend Ed Mileski. Ed, how's it going?
Hi, James. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too. We got to do more of this, you know.
We do. I was going to say something else, and then I started thinking about what you said.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Today's kind of a special show because we crossed 30,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Not a great number in terms of the days of 43 million subscribers on a channel, but considering we talk about nothing and we're old farts, I think that's quite impressive.
Well, you know what? You got to get to 30 before you can get to 100.
That's a good point, Ed.
You know, you got to get to 30.
That's like you got to run before you can crawl. No, you got to crawl before you can run. No, you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. That's what copper's been doing, isn't it?
It's starting to puff its chest, you know.
Like a rooster.
Well, it's basically saying, you know, this has been a big move. We've broken some key lines.
Okay, well,
we'll talk about it later.
We'll look at a chart of that. Today's show, we travel the usual well-treaded pathways between psychedelics and cannabis. As we like to say, it's all about the drugs around here. And today is no exception. Our show is sponsored by Voxtur Analytics, trades under the symbol VXTR in Toronto and VXTRF in the United States. Voxtur Analytics is digitizing the real estate ecosystem and automating the real estate process, making it as seamless, painless, and frictionless across title search, across
every quarter's getting better.
Appraisals. Yeah, I heard from somebody, a little bird told me.
Oh, maybe one of your chickens.
Well, those are big birds.
Okay.
This is a little bird whispered in my ear that you know that their A-Now division is doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 appraisals a day. 1,500 a day. Now that is spectacular. I don't know if that's true. The company hasn't put out that information. Might as well consider that a rumor. We are conflicted when it comes to Voxtur.
Yeah. Just be careful that. Yeah. We're not saying anything carved in stone here.
We have a option position for 1 million shares at $1.15, so we're not in the money yet. I bought 100,000 shares out of the market at 70 cents. I sold 50 last week because the tax man's got me against the wall. He's leaning on my neck with his elbow, and it's like,
if I give you 50 grand, will you let me live?
He said, yeah, boy. You come back with the money, we're coming to get you because we know where you live.
Oh, God.
Anyway, so yeah, Matt Stang is here from Delic Holdings for an update on what Delic's up to. They're knocking it out of the park. Doug Drysdale is here from Cybin. Cybin is one of the best capitalized companies in the psychedelic space.
One of our friends has been telling me to buy Cybin.
Buy Cybin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will actually.
I want to. Big advocate.
I want Cybin as a client. Like, I'm going to start buying the stock, and I'm going to say, Doug, I'm a shareholder, and we can help you. We'll see about that. Kyle Detwiler joins us. He's the CEO of Clever Leaves Holdings. This is another company that I am actually going to start buying at some point out of the market because the stock has come off from a high of $19 back in February. It's now trading at like $7.
Well, let's take a look at the chart later.
We sure will, Edward.
All right.
We got a few audience questions we're going to cover. Rydor wants to know, just wondering if you have a list of sketchy things to watch out for or board members that cause you to be wary of when making investment decisions. My experience that a company with a promising niche or technology can be run into the ground because of bad leadership, management, directorship, etc.
Yeah.
Well, Rydor, today's your lucky day because Ed and I have a number of decades of experience getting...
You got to watch out for extravagant lifestyle, right? If you see a really extravagant lifestyle.
Okay, but this is the thing. You see, look, Robert Friedman.
Right.
He travels around in a private jet, has an extravagant lifestyle.
But I think he has that extravagant balance sheet.
Well, he has created billions in shareholder value across multiple companies.
That's not what I was
So he's like, you see him traveling in his private jet, that's cool.
Yeah.
If you see a guy who's like starting a new company every year and he's got a G6 Gulfstream or 650 or
Yeah.
or you know, he's got multiple houses around the world, and like none of his companies ever see above $1. Those are the kinds of things I think you're referring to, Rydor, is abusive structures and
Personal ATM,
Yeah.
lifestyle where, they got,
Yeah.
this is our little printing press here.
There are people to look out for. There are, if you follow the news and the boards of directors of companies of continuously serial failing public companies, and you see the same names,
Yeah.
that's a good way to identify a pattern of behavior. Martin Farron wanted to know, with Elon Musk acknowledging the therapeutic potential of psychedelic drugs, will this
Okay.
positively impact the sector? The answer to that is obviously yes.
Yeah, but more adapt. When more people adapt,
Yeah.
the audience gets bigger.
Yeah.
They have a bigger voice.
Yeah. What do you think about the role of the solar energy industry in the global energy crisis? It's been consolidating and could have a comeback. JD, I'm going to tell you something about solar. It does not pay. You can't recover your capex in a reasonable amount of time without subsidized government participation. I don't think solar is really going to take off again until the government steps in. Mind you, with the Earth burning for much of the summer in the northern hemisphere and continuously throughout the year at the equator in many places, human beings just might pull a little rabbit out of the hat and say, you know what, this is
Technology
serious shit."
always improves, and energy will become a bigger global factor as time goes on, just because of population demands. And third world countries moving into first world countries, it requires energy. I think it's just a matter of time. I just don't know when. But there's improvements everywhere. Look what's happened in the car area.
Well, I have an
Tesla
electric
is
tractor.
going to make Musk the richest man in the world for a long
Well,
time.
He's now way ahead of Jeff Bezos by
know.
like 50 billion.
I know it's insanity.
Is it crazy or what? Yeah, so thank you for that question, JD. James Miller, final question, wants to know, can we please take a look at IONIC brands, IONKF? Just had a blowout quarter on revenue numbers. Here you go. Here is my due diligence process when somebody tells me to take a look at a company. This is exactly what I do. So you go to the CSE.com, you punch in IONIC, and we're going to get the... Okay, IONIC warrants. Warrants are trading at half a penny. New listing, warrants. Okay, so here's what you want to do with any of these companies. Is you want to find a document called Form 2. Form 2, there it is. Form 2 or Form 2A is basically the listing statement. This tells you where all of the bodies are buried in the financing. So what you do is you go in here, look for prior sales. There it is, 11.6. This is going to tell you where all the stock has gone and at what price. And this is how you tell what your chances are relative to the current share price of making an investment at this price and having an expectation of making a profit. Here's all the financings that we're concerned about for the 12-month period prior to this listing statement. This listing statement is kind of old. So conversion price of 3 cents. They converted $735,000 at 3 cents, 3.5 cents. That is bad.
Yeah, that's a lot of stock, isn't it?
Yeah. Blacklist debentures.
That's like 20 million bucks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or 20 million shares.
20 million shares, I mean, yeah. So let's see, issued 459 at various issue prices. Okay, so this listing statement is deficient in my estimation, because it should say we issued 459,000 shares at these prices, quantities, prices, and they don't do that here. They just group it all together.
Right.
So that's a deficiency in my view, and I'm surprised the exchange didn't call them out on that. 2 million shares at 50 cents. Okay, so here's where it starts to get real. in November. Okay, that's a good financing. So but here again, we issued 1 million shares to settle so that's a 50-cent deal. That's a 50-cent deal. Oh, here we go. Stock exchange price at 7 cents. Anyways, so the reason this thing's trading so low is because that's the price it's been at for so long.
And seems to be a steady stream of sellers.
Yeah, here's management's escrow position. They're substantial holders. That's good.
Let's take a look at the chart.
That's a good idea.
Wow.
IONC.
There you go.
Yeah,
What do they get it up to, 40 cents?
Yep, 45, 47 and a half back here in February.
You know what, on something like this, I would just say, look, this thing is collapsed to its basing. It keeps basing. The knife is falling on the ground. As long as it doesn't keep dropping, at some point, the fundamentals should improve to make the stock go up. If that doesn't happen, I would, I'd sit here and I'd wait.
Yeah.
I'd wait.
See if you can pick it up for a nickel.
Or, just like, so the thing you buy stocks and you wait and you wait and you wait. If you just wait for the breakout, then load the truck.
Yeah.
Make a pass.
Okay, so that's the listing statement. I didn't see any real egregious skeletons in there. So the step 2 of the due diligence process is now I go to cedar.com, use the statements. It's a bit of a chore to get down in here, but here's their most recent financials for the 3 months ended June 30th, 2021 and 2020. Let's take a quick look. These are unaudited. Hey, they got $2 million in cash. That's a good thing.
Yeah. What about
$20 million in goodwill and brands and patents? Well, that's subjective value.
what about liabilities?
Liabilities, $5 million in total. Current portion of lease liability. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities, $3 million. Oh, they got more liabilities than cash.
And they also have more liabilities than receivables.
Yeah.
Trade and other receivables are quite a bit less.
Yeah.
Prepaid inventory. Well, you know what? Deficiency, how much? 35 or 55?
30 or 20. Where? Total shareholder deficiency, 24 million. Total liabilities and shareholders deficiency, 35.3.
Yeah.
So the revenue, this is the breakout quarter.
What revenue is how much?
5.4 million product sales. 5.4 million in product sales? Look at that. Compared to the same quarter last year where they did 485,000.
Okay.
This year they did.
See, that's we got to find out what that's all about.
Yeah, that's incredible. Brokerage sales, equipment, royalty. Well, so yeah, this is a transformational quarter. So let's see. What's the total number of shares outstanding? 134 million.
Yeah.
So they reported a loss of a penny per share. So basically they had a brilliant quarter, but they got lots of debt. That they got to settle.
They need probably another quarter or two.
Yeah, before they show a profit.
And then once they can, once they got the cash flow going right, and they're probably close to it now. But
yeah,
people are saying, hey, okay, we've seen it one great quarter. Let's see another quarter.
Anyways,
Yeah.
we're going to start with a conversation here about the psychedelic slice, and I'll let Matt Stang do the talking.
Okay, let's hear him.
Hey, Matt Stang joins me now, CEO of Delic Holdings, trades on the CSE under the symbol DELC. It trades in the United States under the symbol DELCF. Matt, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure, Matt. You've been a busy guy since we last chatted in June. Tell us some of the developments that have happened with Delic since we last chatted.
Yeah, sure. So we are now the largest chain of psychedelic wellness clinics in America.
Congratulations.
We announced a deal. We now have 13 clinics under our belt across 9 states, soon to be a bunch more, and completed a large financing with a large institutional investor. So yeah, things are going really great. It's an amazing time to build this infrastructure for psychedelic wellness. We think it's the future of mental health, and it just keeps the hits keep coming, the affirmations keep coming, the changes and the dynamics of all of the mainstreaming of psychedelics. You look at the biggest show on Hulu is a show about a psychedelic retreat. I mean, it's just there is a clear delineation that mental health is a huge issue, especially after this pandemic, and psychedelics are one of the only answers we've actually found. So I think it's really an amazing time to be in this space.
Yeah. So the fact that you closed a $7 million private placement with a large institutional investor is kind of indicative to me that there is, institutional grade interest in the space. But there's an increasing number of publicly traded companies that are purporting to be or proposing to be, or they just want to be in the space. And so it's looking a little crowded out there. So, I talk to a lot of psychedelics companies every week, and some of them seem like they're standing still. Delic doesn't seem to be doing that. You guys are really making strides where, with ketamine, with your financial condition and everything, where others are just sort of seems like they're spinning their tires. So how is it that you're able to keep things moving forward in the absence of, real regulatory progress?
Yeah, sure. Well, our thesis coming into this is that this is a brand new industry that's going to transform how people address mental health, and we want to be at the forefront of it. So we've come at this really building a cash flow positive long-term business. We're not looking to raise hundreds of millions of dollars and take a crapshoot on a potential substance that's, maybe gets cashed out in 10 years. We think there's a lot of things that we can do right now that make real cash flow and get real growth and give us an opportunity to build a really real business. And so, you can see now with this new business that we are consolidating this month, we'll have a, $7.5–8 million run rate on the business. So I think looking at this not as a call it a stock play, but as like a real business, we think that there is so much opportunity to build the framework for the psychedelic revolution. And so we're going to build the infrastructure. We're going to build another 15 clinics in the next 18 months and have a footprint over half the United States, and have a giant web presence with our media company. And we're doing the largest psychedelic event in the world next month in Las Vegas, and really kind of being that, let's call it the dominant player in the space of psychedelic wellness, and allow people to come into our ecosystem, to find their psychedelic wellness on our web platform, to go and actually do it at one of our clinics, to come learn more at one of our events. And we think it's a really great flywheel, right? You put someone into one part of it and it spins them into the rest of the ecosystem, and allows us to just keep increasing the revenue and the profitability and the growth, right? And I think this is really a growth story, and I'm super excited about it. And it just makes for a really incredible way to get entree into the psychedelic ecosystem, and not have to wait 7 years to see if the bet is on the right horse for the novel molecule, right? We're going to take a part of any molecule that comes across the finish line. We'll need a clinical model to get distributed out to patients. And so we're going to have the largest one of those in America. And when people need that, they'll come through us. Pretty simple.
Sure. So, in terms of the big pharma participation in the psychedelic space, are they sort of positioning at this point to partner with companies like yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think, all of these things, we have S-ketamine from Johnson & Johnson, which we do at some of our clinics, and is for treatment-resistant depression. I think that as these other substances, such as MDMA and psilocybin, get through their phase 3 clinical trials, those will come online, and we'll obviously have them offered at our clinics. I think there's a lot of interest from pharma, But I think, they're leaving the grunt work to the kind of biotech psychedelic plays that are just kind of advancing it across to that phase 2, phase 3, and getting it to a point where it's certain enough for what amounts to a bank, the pharma companies or big banks, to bet on, right? So I think that's where it's at right now. I just see, we get to be molecule agnostic and just build a huge platform and a trusted brand and a safe space for people to come and try psychedelic wellness. And that's the biggest thing to me is, the cover of Newsweek 2 weeks ago, right? Psychedelics are the future of mental health. All of these things keep building, the 60 Minutes, the CNN reports. Everyone wants to get into it, but most of these are not allowed, where ketamine is fully approved by FDA and has incredible efficacy for mental health. And so people are looking for a way to get access, and we have a large chain across the country where people can come and get access to psychedelic healing. And so I think it's just, the more that drumbeat comes out, the more people are looking for a place to try it. And that's where we get to really build a large and devoted patient following. And so I think that's just an important part of building out this framework.
Sure. Do you see in the future is the requirement to have a psychedelic experience for mental health reasons? Is that always going to be a clinical setting environment requirement? Or do you think there's ever going to be like, go to get your prescription of ketamine and strap in at home?
It's a great question. I know that Oregon has already legalized psilocybin for therapeutic purposes, and that will allow a non-FDA pathway for psilocybin treatments, right? So I know that's happening. It's going to happen, next year. Well, 2023 is when they're going to roll out the program. Seattle just decriminalized natural psychedelics today. So you've got a lot of places that are looking at this, and they're saying, do we need to wait 7 years and lose hundreds of thousands of people to suicide, and millions of families to the the horrors of mental health issues, or do we push something through that allows people to go and get maybe natural substances that have psychedelic properties and do them under a therapeutic model, but not a full FDA compliance model? It's possible. My thought is that there will be some of that, right? There will be some of that loosening, and I think specifically around the naturally occurring psychedelics, because it's hard to say, this mushroom, it's the same thing that happened with cannabis. It grows in the ground, you can smoke it. It's very hard to regulate that. And once there's a ton of health benefits that people see, it becomes almost counterintuitive to lock people up or tell them that this is a crime to do this, right? So it's what is that balance to get to people while keeping them safe and secure from, the problem with psychedelics in the 60s is it got out of control, and people didn't have the right set and setting. They didn't have the right guides and containers to really be able to handle things, and people had schismatic breaks. People with, there's a lot of what you do in the mental health profession, which is screening people for the proper usage. And if people have a history in their family of psychotic breaks or schizophrenia or any of these things, they should stay away from psychedelics, because that could create that schismatic break in them. So I think it's really important that we don't go down the path where it's completely unregulated. And that's part of what Oregon's doing, is saying, well, unregulated markets create incentives for profiteering and bad actors. So why not regulate it? Why not put in strictures and rules? Why not make some taxes and set up a marketplace that works, that allows people to do these things that they're going to do anyway in a safe and secure manner, right? So I think that's the reality of what seems to be happening. Our event in Las Vegas, we have two people from one from the county commission and one from the state legislature coming to talk about psychedelics and how they see a path to a regulated marketplace for it. So I know the conversation is happening everywhere, right? It's It's how do you do that? I don't have the answer. I think it will be probably state level initiatives that look similar to Oregon. And then I think for us, what we see is this national model that is a clinical rollout that has really great supervision and really great standard of care and helps people get well. And you kind of balance those two things out, where if people are not, if they're looking to get better, to increase their human performance, if they're looking to biohack themselves with psychedelics, that's one thing. And then you have these clinics for people who need supervised care and really help with getting through mental health disorders. And I think that's kind of the balance. And we just think the opportunity is humongous, because there's something like, depending on which numbers you go off, 30 to 75 million people in this country alone who need help with anxiety, depression, or PTSD. That's a humongous total addressable market. And so we think there's just, it's not only is it underserved, it's just people don't know it's possible, right? And so there's, while we're having this conversation, 95% of the population has no idea this is going. Maybe it's 90% now, because the amount of mainstream awareness is growing. But it's still, people hear about it, they think Timothy Leary, they think, oh God, it's going to be scary, it's going to be hippies. They don't think, oh, this is rigorous science over the past 70 years has shown this is our best chance to help people with a disordered mental health. And that's where I think the huge benefit comes, and our business of mainstreaming psychedelics with this event, with our media property, allows us to then bring people to these clinics who need the help.
Yeah. You bet. All right, Matt. Well, that's a great update. We're going to leave it there for now.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon.
Have a great one.
You too. Bye for now. Delic trades on the CSE. So there's the chart. And yes, it has been sucking hind tit a little bit.
Although
lately.
it's shown it can move. It got up there. Now it's come down here. Maybe we're bottoming again. And there's a bit of you can see a trend starting to emerge there.
Yeah. But, okay, so here's what do they have going for them? They've applied for a dealer's license to commercialize psychedelics. These are the most recent press release headlines. They've created a ketamine toxicology test solution. They've got two-time NBA champ Lamar Odom to headline Meet Delic, an event on November the 7th. They've closed $7 million private placement with an institutional investor at 28 cents. Well, that's why the stock's at 28 cents. They just raised money at 28 cents. So, to be expected.
But they're operating profitably. KWC.
KWC has been, operating profit. Oh, okay. So this is their...
They're acquiring.
Right.
Ketamine wellness centers.
Right. So, yeah. So I would hazard to say that this looks like a good entry level at 28 cents. That's what the last institutional investor paid.
Yeah.
They've got revenue coming.
They seem to be able to raise money quite easily.
Yeah.
Regardless of the price.
Now the options, there's 3.5 million options. Well, there's a total of 5 million options out at an average price of 33. There's a whole boatload at 25. So we know that management isn't going to be interested in exercising options at 25 cents when the stock's at 28. That's why that's a good price. They got until 2023 to exercise those options, 2025 in some cases. So, could be a good entry point. How much lower can it go? Well, I guess the real answer is we would look to the technicals to indicate a reversal in that pattern. Let's just quickly look at that chart again. And so far, this trend to the downside technically is intact. Fundamentals always precede technical moves, fundamental milestones, and fundamentally, the news is good. Not reflected in the share price yet, so...
Those last few candles have very, very long tails, which is a good sign. Right. There seems to be some good support in there. Right. And then you can see there's a trend line at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like right at the bottom there. We can take a look at this.
Yeah.
See this? From sort of there.
Yeah.
They're slightly lower, higher lows, maybe. maybe.
Higher lows, higher highs.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a definite
Trend.
starting.
Friend.
Trend is your friend. We're going to do a segment called The Trend is Your Friend.
The segment called The Trend is Your Friend. So yeah, we'll give this capital structure, let's see, they have a total of, I think, in spite of the fact that it's named Psychedelic, that's a clever name. Anyways, capital structure gets a B. They got 130 million shares outstanding in total, and it's raised a lot of its money at lower prices, which always lowers the score in the capital table for me. If you can raise money at a premium, like dollars instead of pennies, that's what puts you in the realm of an A for your capital structure. Anyways, enough about that.
Okay.
I want to talk to you a little bit about Bitcoin. If you don't mind, I'd like to pull up a chart and get your 2 cents worth, because Bitcoin is, it's causing me to not lose sleep per se, but lose my mind.
Lose your mind.
Yeah.
So look, this trend up here, and I can't, all the way up, break, consolidation. This was so steep. In retrospect, I can say there's back and filling, and we've had back and filling, right?
Yeah.
All through that almost straight down, punishment of the highest order. And we held bottom. I mean, this is easy to say after and think, but look we're just sort of backing and filling this like off a cliff.
Yeah.
What was that? So look, I suspect it's going to have a hard time. This looks like it's setting up for a double top, but if it breaks those highs here, and stand back. Don't piss into a hurricane.
Right.
You just don't know.
Well,
there's just too much money in the world.
Scott Meinert, Guggenheim Funds, predicted back in springtime, $400,000 Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, came out and said, it's not real. It's a lot of people are going to get hurt. He was the guy who said Bitcoin is a fraud, flat out, back in 2017. Anyways, and then he changed his tune.
Short. There you go.
He's like, well, we can make money off of this. And that's the difference between a banker and guys like us.
Yeah.
They make money all day long.
They don't give a shit.
We prefer to live in reality and understand that this is fundamentally not sustainable, and it is going to crash. It might not be in our lifetimes. Yeah, a whole bunch of crypto kids are going to make billions and make us eat humble pie.
A guy calls up his broker and says, what do you think of this stock? He says, I think we should sell it. He said, I was thinking about buying more. He says, well, good point.
Good point. Yeah, the insanity of stock markets. My next guest is Doug Drysdale. He's with Cybin. Listen to what he has to say. Doug Drysdale joins me now, CEO of Cybin, trades on NEO under the symbol CYBN, and in the United States under the symbol CYBN. Doug, welcome back.
James, good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Doug. Okay, let's hear it. What's been happening with Cybin lately? I saw a press release cross the wire today. What's the news?
Well, we continue to make tremendous progress. What you saw today was more milestones by the Adelia team. Adelia Therapeutics is an acquisition we made back in December of last year. And the team has really grown. From 5 people a year ago to more than 55 people today across 4 countries, managing 50 different partnerships. So we're really gaining some tremendous momentum with all of our development programs.
Okay, and so what is the sort of momentum being driven by at this point?
It's really moving programs through preclinical work with an expectation of data coming around the end of this year for both our depression program, CYB1, and our alcohol use disorder program, CYB3. We're really looking to see if we can deliver that faster onset of action and shorter duration of action that we've been striving for. And that's just around the corner now.
Sure. And are you seeing much in the way of, I'm seeing a lot of new psychedelics companies coming to market every day. Is the landscape getting crowded, in your opinion?
It is crowded in the sense that there are a lot of startups, but I see that over the next 12 to 24 months, we might see quite a different picture on 2 fronts, really. 1, in terms of capital, and 2, in terms of IP. I mean, it's just a fact that not all of these startup companies will get the capital they need to bring products through development. Drug development is very expensive and time-consuming. And then from an IP point of view, we're just at the early stages. The IP landscape is like an iceberg field. You're just seeing the tips of those icebergs poking through above the waterline right now. And as patents start to issue in the next 12 months or so, we'll see some conflicts, we'll see some failures, and we'll see probably some mergers, some licensing, maybe some litigation. It's going to be an interesting time. But certainly both of those factors, I think, will drive some consolidation.
Sure. Cybin's probably one of the best capitalized of the psychedelics companies out there. How have you been able to sort of preserve cash and move forward?
Well, we've been successful in 5 oversubscribed financing rounds so far. So that's very encouraging. We continue to make strong progress. It's really about the development team and our IP situation. We've filed 16 patents to date. We continue to make more filings on a regular basis, continue to prosecute those aggressively to protect our intellectual property. And the team is really world-class, have managed over 60 development programs with the FDA, filed more than 300 peer-reviewed papers, and actually one part of the team was responsible for developing esketamine that ultimately was marketed by Johnson & Johnson, which is really the first psychedelic compound that's been approved in the United States.
Wow, that's amazing. And so has the pace of decriminalization and sort of permission for research continued to broaden across the developed world at this point?
You know, that's an interesting question because I see decriminalization as quite different from what we're doing. We're developing prescription psychedelic pharmaceutical products for mental health. Decriminalization, I think, is more about criminal justice reform. You know, in the United States, we have 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prisoners, most of those from nonviolent drug crime. So from that perspective, it's great to see decriminalization. But I also do think that it's a kind of leading indicator of sentiment towards these kinds of molecules. We even saw DEA come out recently and recommend an expansion in the quota that they'll approve of psilocybin available for research over the coming 12 months. So there's building momentum, for sure.
Sure. Do you see the progress of national criminal or decriminalization of cannabis in the United States as a positive for the psychedelic space?
I think it shows us, again, a positive sentiment towards looking at these kinds of molecules and maybe rethinking our attitude towards them. Instead of labeling them all as bad, I think people are more receptive and open to learning more about how they can help in mental illness and in other conditions. And so, and I think the pandemic that we're in has led to that. I mean, on the one hand, this pandemic has created more mental health issues, definitely more depression, substance abuse, and suicides. But it's also created an openness to talk about mental health and be aware of it. And that increased openness and that increasing, I think, hope of looking at new ways of doing things is fueling, I think, the whole sector, probably medical cannabis as well.
Sure. Have any major roadblocks developed in any jurisdiction that might affect Cybin's progress at this point?
No, we're not seeing any. You know, I mean, there are challenges to managing Schedule 1 drugs, of course. I mean, you have to work with partners and with facilities and institutions that are licensed, whether it's DEA in the United States or other regulators in Canada and Europe where we're working as well. So that requires a lot of paperwork. It requires security and cameras and vaults and safes and all those things. But those are all conditions that drug developers are used to working with controlled substances like oxycodone, for example. So yes, there are some hurdles, but really nothing that's insurmountable for us at this stage.
Great. So then what keeps you awake at night? Is there anything that sort of makes you sort of uneasy about the future for Cybin?
Well, not uneasy, but of course, every CEO gets awake at night by something or other. And I think one of the larger challenges in front of us is just infrastructure. So when I look around North America and Europe for investigators or therapists or institutions that have psychedelics experience, those are fairly limited. And when you think about the multiple drug programs that we're looking to run clinical studies with, and other companies doing the same thing, there's clearly not enough infrastructure. And that's one of the reasons that we partnered with Greenbrook TMS recently. Greenbrook, listed on the NASDAQ, they run 149 mental health centers across the United States in all 50 states. And that they have access to tens of thousands of depressive patients on an annual basis. So we think that this partnership can help bring us infrastructure, patients, expertise, and delivery of care to help supplement some of the existing infrastructure that's out there. So short answer is scaling is always a challenge in any new industry. And in here, we're having to build some of the infrastructure ourselves through partnerships.
Sure. At what point do you think that the HMO system in the United States and health insurance in other more social-leaning countries, at what point do you see them actually stepping up to cover the costs of treatments using psychedelics?
I think they're already very excited. We've had conversations with payers and with payer-provider models in the US, and they look at the potential to remove someone's depressive symptoms or their addictive cravings for weeks or months at a time from 1 or 2 doses as really game-changing. On the addiction side, giving someone a clean space where they can change behaviors and form new habits, where they're not taking substances for weeks or months at a time, helps reduce comorbidities and helps reduce healthcare costs. On the depression side, the same thing, lost productivity and comorbidities of depressed patients that are being managed by treatments that are not too effective today. So they're looking at this, the payers are looking at this from a pharmacoeconomic perspective. We're running pharmacoeconomic studies to help support some of those claims that we'll make as we go forward.
Sure. Does it make sense in terms of the scalability of the sort of the personal, like I've heard it said that pretty much you have to have 2 registered qualified individuals in a room while administering a psychedelic to a patient. And I think about that in terms of how does that scale and make the cost still bearable to an individual who might be expected to pay a portion of the healthcare they receive.
Yeah, I think scaling is a challenge. When we look at some of the classical psychedelic drugs, they're quite long-acting. MDMA maybe 10 hours or so, LSD could be 8 hours, psilocybin might be 6 hours. And when we speak to our clinical partners, they struggle with that concept too. They struggle to understand how they can give up an entire treatment room for an entire day for just one patient. That's not really their business model. So we need to come up with treatments that can adapt to their business model so that we can get adoption of these treatments. So at Cybin, we're taking a number of different approaches across our pipeline to develop treatments that are much faster in terms of onset, so not having to wait an hour or so for the drug to kick in, much shorter in terms of duration, maybe fitting within a typical therapy window, 45 minutes to 2 hours, something in that time slot, that then depression clinics and addiction clinics can adapt to, or at least bring into their treatment paradigm. And I think if we can do that, then you'll see broader adoption and those costs per patient come down quite significantly.
You bet. All right, Doug, that's a great update. We're going to leave it there for now. I appreciate your time again, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you very much, James.
You bet. Bye for now. Let's take a quick capital structure scorecard look at Cybin.
Okay.
First of all, in terms of share price performance, it has been it's been a loser since mid-July. Just the trend is downward, and
but you see that steep drop there again,
yes.
Like that really steep one, right?
Right here.
Whenever you get that, and it carried on, it went so far, right down to here, and that move, see, backing and filling again, backing and filling. This thing has got a hold in here, like there's a trend line here. You could probably say from there through there, through there. It's looking like, you know, it's got a hold here, I think.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's got a hold here.
I got a hold on you.
Yeah, that I think though the downward trend from here looks like it's starting to widen out and we're basing out a bit.
Yeah.
That would be nice to see, and then if you get an uptick.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange,
Yeah.
that
Well, that's
that
just
tells
it.
you something.
That's why, might be a buy down here. They've
Yeah,
raised
yeah.
$120 million.
Yeah.
They uplisted to the New York Stock Exchange on August 5th. They've raised $120 million to date. 4 active drug programs, as Doug pointed out in the interview. 50 different, so this is, cash and cash equivalents totaling $55 million still as of June 30th. So they don't need to raise a lot of money anytime soon.
Well, they got, if they're burning that much money, it's 15 a month, 15 a quarter, that's 4 quarters. And they got 55 million. So they're good for, 9 months.
Right.
From whatever.
But now being on the NYSE, I think this could be a buy down here.
Ability, like I say, if that's basing out here, give it a little bit of time and it starts to turn up, it could really fly.
As of the last quarter, there's 148 million shares out, 28 million warrants, 21 million options.
That's 200 million. 200 million. 200 million is 200 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Public owns quite a bit of stock.
Yeah. That's good. And so these are the ones you could that are driving the price lower. I bet these are being exercised as we speak.
Rat-a-tat-tat.
Anything below $2 is going to get exercised and sold pretty quick. So it's still got some downward pressure against it.
But money coming in.
But money coming in, we
not big money.
don't see what they raised their money at, so we don't have a comment about that yet. Anyways, I like Cybin. I think it's one of the more promising companies out there. Edward, now let's talk a bit for a second about Voxtur Analytics. Voxtur's our sponsor. We have options in Voxtur. I own stock in Voxtur. I sold some last week because I needed the do-re-mi, but I'm still holding 2/3 of the position, and we haven't sold an option because our options are at $1.15, so they're not in the money. However, we are sponsored by Voxtur, so we have to consider what we say in the context of advertising and think that if this stock goes up, we stand to make money. That's our disclosure by law. Now, interestingly, I heard that the company is doing really well. They announced that they were acquiring Real Wealth Technologies.
Right.
Nobody's really sure what the meat of that is. We had Gary on 2 weeks ago now. But the ANOW division, the appraisals division, is doing apparently something like 1,500 appraisals a day in the U.S. And it's been treading water.
Okay.
Trading
Look at
sideways.
this big move, right?
Yeah.
Big move.
That was the last earnings caused that. move.
Yeah, and I think they've gone in a new direction from back in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But look, I tell you, this something's changed with this company. Clearly.
Yeah.
Now, this is closer to the high than it is to this, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny when you talk to management of the company, they're expressing frustration with the fact that this is a SaaS company that's trading at not even 2 times earnings, which and as this executive chairman Gary Yeoman said to me, he's like, we've got these other companies trading at 25 times earnings, 12 times earnings, but those are NASDAQ listed companies and NYSE listed companies, and it's a mistake that, and I'm running the risk of getting chastised by the client, but a lot of guys get on the TSX Venture and they start comparing themselves to NYSE companies based on their financials, and it's like that.
Different kettle of fish.
Exactly.
Apples
you
and
can have
oranges.
exactly the same financial performance as a company on the NYSE, but you have no business comparing that in terms of multiples because the NYSE is such a more liquid market with such a bigger audience that you can't compare yourself to companies on the NYSE until you're on the NYSE.
Yeah, and even then,
yeah,
there's some comparisons that don't make sense.
Yeah, so the company's been expressing frustration with the share price, and I think that considering that they have had this transformational growth in price from back here, look at where they were a year ago. They were trading at 13 cents a year ago. So this is not the kind of consolidation. Or this is not the kind of price transformation.
This has to happen. When you go from there to there, that has to happen. Now, look at this. This is a very nice base.
Yeah.
This is the breach of this trend we're now going this direction,
Yeah.
albeit we've now corrected, but this was, again, going up exponentially.
Yeah.
So move.
A TSX
how did
venture
it-
listed company cannot absorb that kind of upward move without a period of consolidation and backing off, right?
Look, we had a big move here, right here, from there to there. Whenever you see that exponential move, it can correct. This may go on for another week or two, but if next time it curls up, that's when I think you're going to see a move back to at least the old highs.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting close.
Well,
I
and
think you
the,
gotta look at the RSI, the volume, pay attention to the news releases.
Yeah.
Just sort of.
Well, they got another quarter coming out, end of year, and it's not going to be the home run quarter that everyone's expecting. It is going to be, by all accounts, a double-digit increase again in revenue, and so that's 4 quarters in a row of double-digit revenue growth.
That's when people start paying attention too.
Well, and so like I keep saying to management, I said like everybody should just like chill out and be very pleased with themselves because you're delivering on your fundamental earnings, and you just have to be patient. Like, so I know what it's like to be management. All the shareholders are giving them shit, saying why is their share price
You know who
down?
really has a lot of patience?
Who's that?
My doctor.
Your doctor?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you'd have to have a lot of patience if he's your doctor. What's he waiting for?
What about the patience? Patients.
What about the patience? Look at the flowers.
Patience. Okay.
Patience.
Patience.
No, I think it's
I was trying to tell a joke.
P-A-T-I-E-N-S is patience, the flower.
Oh, that flower. Okay, that's another one. Yeah, you're right. And
Impatience.
Impatience.
We sure have a good time. It's too bad the audience is like, what the hell are those guys talking
give them
about?
some
They just
more
got off
drugs.
on a
Give them
tangent.
some more drugs. No, I like that action. And look.
Yeah.
To your point, I mean, look, you can want a lot, but look, you keep delivering and you'll get it.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Now we should talk about copper, shouldn't we?
All right. So copper, Ed, has broken out again.
Yeah. This is an all-time high, May 21 or something like that. And then, we got down here, bounced sharply, broke that downtrend, which was a good sign to get that, and it broke. And if you look, if you draw that line all the way down, you'll see it bounced off it here.
Yeah.
And now we've got the low, higher low, and then all of a sudden, as we broke this line, things started to get jumpy in the pits. People start saying, wait a minute, we're breaking out here. And as soon as that happens, they start buying these things like crazy. And now we're all the way back here. We've got to get through this, and then we've got this action. And then we could be in for a run of a century. It could be a crazy move because it's such a vital commodity.
Yeah.
And you just can't turn on the switch.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my question for you. And we're both shareholders in this company, and people are probably tired of us talking our book, but that's what we do. So U.S. Copper, which was formerly Crown Mining and is run by a very good friend of ours. In general, I mean, so it was trading at 10 cents when copper was trading at $4.10. Now it's gone up, so it's risen almost 50%.
Yeah, 40, 50%.
So this is reacting in an exponential way to the underlying commodity price. And this is why, if you want exposure to commodities, it's better to own a little public company that's got major exposure to it. And these guys have billions of pounds, US 43101.
Yeah, but historic numbers. They're
not current.
But there's a 43101, but I don't understand. You got to be very careful how you say it.
Yeah.
But these are historic numbers, but there's a 4311 and there's a preliminary economic assessment.
Right.
Which means that at certain prices, they can say they're going to make so much money.
Right. So anyways, this is the point being, this is why Ed and I keep buying this thing on the dips and we keep holding it, is because if copper went to $6, this share price would likely appreciate dramatically. Again, we are conflicted, so consider what we're saying in terms of we're talking our own book, we're advertising. If this stock goes up, we make money. You probably don't unless you bought it down here. But I'm going to tell you, if you look at the longer term history of this share price, I mean, it does go down to 5 cents in times of a bad copper price. But this is a good entry point. If copper's established a new level, then so has U.S. copper.
Yeah.
And that's
what we're starting to see. In fact, this next move, and they're going to have some drill results out pretty soon.
Imminently.
They got some problems with the Dixie fire,
Yeah.
which is a major fire in
Shut 'em
California.
down.
Shut them down.
Shut it down.
For a couple of months. But we're going to start getting results drifting in. I'm sure it's sometime this month, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of copper, they have a lot of gold, and they have a lot of silver. And if copper did something stupid, like went to double digits, say in the next year and a half, 2 years, someone might say, you know what, we got to own this deposit because we just don't know what's coming down the corner. And remember, all these producers now are making gobs of money. They're getting stronger. Their balance sheets are getting better. Soon they're going to have to start going out and getting other projects.
Now, while we're on the topic, Elon Musk and Tesla have done a deal with Vale. Vale sold their New Caledonia nickel mine, which is one of the biggest producers in the world. They produce 40,000 tons per year of nickel.
And Tesla said, we'll take it all.
Well, and Tesla has done a deal with some of the mining unions in New Caledonia, which is a little island off of the coast of New Zealand. Like when I say off the coast, I think it's like 800, 900 nautical miles or something. Actually, I don't know, so I shouldn't even pretend to.
Well, you know what? It's remote.
How far? Hey Siri, how far is New Caledonia from New Zealand? Oh, we don't have Siri in here. We pitched her out because she was listening.
2,000 kilometers.
What was that? 2,000 kilometers?
Yeah, that was.
Anyways, so
okay.
Let's look at the price of nickel here, because there's the performance of nickel. This is why Elon Musk has invested in a nickel project of his own.
He's going to need, to do what he's going to do, and Tesla, it keeps increasing their sales, and that's just the one area. Like this guy's got grandiose ambition.
Yeah. So
look at that. That's near an all-time high.
Yeah.
Commodities like oil's 81.
Yeah.
Look at it.
So this is the thing. The lip service paid by the Fed to inflation, indicating their term transitory. Well, it was transitory. The low inflation transitory period is now over. Now it's rapid inflation, and that's an opportunity, especially with tech stocks at these all-time highs. I mean, some of that money's going to bleed in here. And now that Elon's actually pulled the trigger and bought a nickel, so let's take a look at the effect.
Well, there you go. So
that's
somebody just bought a copper mine in Peru.
Yeah.
A copper property, albeit a relatively small one, for $25 million. But this is a stock that was trading for virtually nothing, and all of a sudden it went up dramatically.
So here's a company. We don't own stock in this. Canada Nickel Corp. And when Elon started buying nickel, their stock took off again. So
look at that drop.
Yeah, well, that was basically early shareholders selling, obviously.
Well, they really knocked the shit out of that. Well,
and so this is the thing. Like, this could be cheap. I mean, this is reflecting the fundamental event.
But look at once that trend breaks, right? Every time we see a trend break, and if it's a sharp trend, there's usually a corresponding sharp trend the other way.
Yeah.
And look at that move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, our next guest is one of the only companies that actually exports cannabis from Colombia. Do you know that this is the only company so far operating in Colombia that has exported cannabis to the United States? And this is one of the best capitalized companies in the whole cannabis game.
And it's down quite a bit, isn't it?
And it's down dramatically. But first we'll listen to the CEO, Kyle Detwiler, joins me now from Colombia. Kyle Detwiler joins me now. He's the CEO of Clever Leaves Holdings, trades on NASDAQ under the symbol CLVR. Kyle, welcome back.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, Kyle, it's been, I think we last had you in December of last year. And so what has happened with Clever Leaves since then?
Sure. Well, we've been a public company now for coming up on our 1 year anniversary, which is a great milestone for the company. But we're continuing to grow the B2B international trade of cannabis. It's not easy. We've announced some big triumphs. Our first shipments from Portugal. We've had some evolution in the Colombian legal framework around the export of flower products on top of extract products. And then just a couple of days ago, we actually had what I think is a very transformative shipment, which is our first THC flower sales to the United States, which I don't think many people thought, was even possible.
Yeah, that is super intriguing. So give us a little more color on that. Who did you sell it to, and was it through a national agency, or how did that happen? It's so counterintuitive to think that the U.S. would be importing cannabis from anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, when the team brought the idea to me, I thought they were nuts. I immediately loved the idea, but I thought it was crazy. And so, we began working on this, you could almost say several years ago. We began analyzing the different regulatory pathways by which we could send product in. Now, just because cannabis is prohibited by the Controlled Substances Act in the United States doesn't mean there are no possible ways to manage it. It just has to be managed in according with a Schedule I narcotic protocol. So in this case, we sold the product to a company called Biopharmaceutical Research Company, which has licenses from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, or the DEA. And so they're qualified or licensed, if you will, to hold that product. So we sold them 30 kilograms of flour in this process. And it almost needs to trace back, back in July, we announced something we called Project Change Lives. Project Change Lives was a program where we're going to give $25 million worth of product to third parties, academic institutions, or researchers to conduct research on cannabis in the United States. And that was kind of phase one of this program. Phase two is now the commercial shipment. We have other phases that we hope we will be able to announce someday, but this is very difficult, right? Nobody's really done this before, and so we have to take it one step at a time. Sure.
So I'm curious as to, in terms of the pricing that you realized from that transaction. My first thought is, oh, well, you must have given them a real discount for them to choose you as opposed to a domestic source. But what are the circumstances of the sale itself? Did you have to discount the product?
Sure. So we haven't publicly disclosed our pricing. We've publicly disclosed the size of the program. So 30 kilograms, and in some senses that's a truck full. But at the same time, it's not like an ocean freighter full. So I think as the Chinese proverb goes, every journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And so this is our first step, but we haven't gotten into pricing. Now, in terms of your second part of the question, what was their alternative? Today, there's only one source for federally legal produced cannabis in the United States, which is the University of Mississippi. So that product is, has limits to it. So
the University of Mississippi produces famously consistently awful cannabis.
I'm not here to qualify or speak about their quality, but I'm here to speak about ours. And we thought it was to now have two suppliers in the United States. I mean, hey, it's double your options. And if we can provide more strains, more product variants, higher potencies, we believe that's the type of product that American researchers should be working with, because it's what American consumers are acquiring at dispensaries, and so it only makes sense to match those two up.
Sure. Okay, so, being a producer in Colombia, you're already one of the lowest cost producers in the world. So I guess that in and of itself provides a competitive advantage if you're going to compete internationally for markets.
100%. And, it's interesting that this product actually came from Portugal, which is, our second production center. So I think it's a one thing to have low costs, and Portugal is definitely a low cost site. It may not be as low cost as Colombia, but what we've learned is, having the cost is one part of the equation, but having that regulatory expertise is another part. We're not the first cannabis company. There's a lot of large, established, medically focused cannabis companies in Canada that could have done this, but this was it took a lot of work. It took a partnership. It took a lot of business development energies. It took that, charitable initiative that we launched back in July to lead up to that. I think cost is one, quality is another component, but also just having the regulatory know-how to accomplish this is a big competitive advantage as well.
Sure. The sector, in terms of the publicly traded cannabis companies, the whole sector has suffered quite a quite a horrible year so far, and Cleverleaves really hasn't been able to escape that downdraft. But increasingly, more and more money managers and analysts are starting to think, well, we're getting into the point where it's just a screaming buy. In fact, I had Chuck Turk from 9 Point Asset Management on the show recently, and he said in those exact words, some of these stocks are a screaming buy. So in terms of Cleverleaves, let's talk about financial performance. What have your financials looked like over the last year?
Sure. So, I mean, we're still in our, growth phase as a business. A significant amount of capital has been invested in the company. But, since we are a public company, I can't comment on performance in between quarters. But, I encourage people to look back at our 10Qs from the June 30 quarter ended. But, really, that's just the beginning. And, I agree with you. It feels like if all the cannabis kids at school were in one classroom, we all got sent to the corner, and it doesn't matter, what your business is, what your cost structure is, how robust your supply chain is. I think the baby has been thrown out with the bathwater, in my opinion. And I don't really think there are too many companies like Cleverleaves that have the cost structure that we have, that have accomplished the things that we have accomplished. Now, no doubt, there is a heavy weight on these two shoulders, which is, okay, it's time to deliver financial performance. Our sales cycles are very long. It takes a bit of time to move into new markets. We're pushing into countries like Germany, Brazil, Australia, Israel. Those 4 markets are not as, the path isn't as worn as it might be for an American recreational cannabis company to sell or a Canadian cannabis company to sell, but it will also be harder for others to join us in that journey. So while the challenge is high, climbing a big mountain is not for the weak at heart. It will also make it more difficult for others to replicate what we do when we accomplish that.
Right. In terms of accessing the U.S. recreational market, is that on your list of ambitions?
I think we'll always evaluate opportunities as regulatory reform occurs in the United States, but at this time there isn't a plan because we are a NASDAQ listed company, and so while there are ways to align with U.S. recreational businesses, we don't have one in mind just now.
Sure. So then, where are you focused in building? Where do you see your strongest pipeline of product sales happening?
Yeah, definitely those 4 geographies that I mentioned earlier. So Germany, Brazil, Australia, Australia and Israel. Those are the big 4. We are trying to open up the United States in sort of a nifty way, but very early on there. And so I think we need more time to see if that's going to be an opportunity. But I don't believe many people are putting any weight to what a federally legal medical market in the United States could look like. And we're starting to maybe have people ask those questions.
Sure. In terms of being one of the lowest cost producers on the planet, what is it about Colombia that gives you that ability?
Well, there's a couple things. One, the environment is born for producing cannabis. If you went to a Southern California cannabis company today, that was located in a greenhouse, you might find out that 20 or 30 years ago, they used to grow, products like red roses or chrysanthemums there. And if you follow the flow of the roses, most of those are now produced in Colombia. So Colombia actually is responsible for about 7 in 10 cut flower imports to the United States. So we have 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. For those that have grown cannabis before, that is a natural circadian rhythm, if you will, to the plant that we get for free. We don't have to have supplemental lighting. We don't have to have, large facilities to protect from variations in temperature that are extreme. We don't have to deal with snow. So those are just a number of the advantages. And of course, labor costs are a bit lower in Colombia compared to, the United States or Canada, and that helps as well. But most of it comes from the fact that cannabis just grows a bit more naturally in this environment. I like to think that, if Martians were looking down on Earth, you probably wouldn't see cannabis growing naturally in some geographies, but in Colombia, it would be a natural fit.
Right. Interesting. Okay, Kyle, well, that's a great update. We're going to leave it there for now and come back to you soon. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, James.
You bet. We'll talk again soon. Here's the chart, Ed. Look at this company. It was $19 back in February after going public.
Right.
The last time we had Kyle on was in December last year. We're rocked up to $20 and has since been selling off, as have all cannabis
Where are we
companies.
now? I can't. My eyes
It's
aren't good.
$7.06.
Sure.
So trades on NASDAQ, CLVR, lowest cost cannabis production through Colombian and Portuguese. 1.9 million square feet of growing space. Wow. 18% of Colombia's national global THC quota. One company. First company to
Look, you
legally-
just went by the cash. They have 57 million bucks.
57 million in cash. Revenue expected 17 to 20 million in 2021 with gross margin of 61%. Will be interesting to see what that nets out to. So this is a company with results, and this is why I think even at $7, I think it could be a buy here.
Well, you know what? Again, there's a lot of different objectives for investors, right? Now, if
Yeah.
you've got cash and you don't,
Says it closed a $25 million financing from Sunstream in July. Doesn't say the price here. We always want to see what price the financing was done at. It's got an enterprise value of $280 million, debt of $35 million. Not bad for a company that's got...
yeah. Now that's a bit out of date because the shares now.
Yeah, but this is obviously back when it was $11 a share.
Right.
Yeah, so... Yeah, and then
Okay,
there's
so-
no
so-
previous sales.
Look, as the price drops, it gets closer to its value,
Yeah.
and we're getting closer all the time.
Yeah. But these press releases make me think that they could really turn this around, especially selling marijuana into the States. Like, that's just incredible. Anyways, that's
Okay.
Cleverleaves.
Yeah, well, it looks like they're doing the right things. That you always like to see a healthy balance sheet and revenues growing.
Yeah. Anyways, everybody, we hope you had a good time with us today, but that's our show for today, and we're kind of tuckered out now.
Tuckered out.
Time for a nap for us
Time
old
for a nap.
farts.
Time for a nap.
Might even be time for a beer. Are you still on the wagon, Ed?
Yes.
You are. I saw you wink there. Was that a nervous tick?
No.
There's our show for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to write us if you have any questions. We'd be happy to take them on the next show in 1 week's time, if not sooner. Tally-ho. Right, Edward? Woo!
Wow. Oh.
Ah!
Bye. Happy Halloween, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Happy Halloweeny.